10 years ago, $10,000 could solve problems. Today, it feels like it barely gets you started. Groceries are higher, gas is higher, and rent, don't even get me started. Also, did anyone else notice when did fast food meals suddenly become $15? My point is, in 2015, this amount of money bought some stability. Now it just buys more time for anxiety. Hey there, I'm Mike, your investing goblin. I spend an unhealthy amount of my free time thinking about money, building wealth, and decoding the chaos of modern finance, so you don't have to. If you want clear, visual, no nonsense breakdowns of what's happening with your wallet and how to actually protect your hard earned cash, then you're in the right place. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. All right, now let's get into it. Let's start with something we all feel every single week: groceries. Back in 2015, $10,000 spent on groceries could easily cover a full year of food for an average household. Want the numbers? Let's break it down. In 2015, the average American household spent around $4,015 per year on groceries. That means $10,000 was well over double the annual food budget. It gave plenty of breathing room. Now let's look at specific prices in 2015 versus this year, 2025. Now, this list here is just a few examples, but as you can see, these aren't small increases. In fact, many of these have nearly doubled. Fast forward to today, the average annual grocery cost for a household is around $7,500. 10,000 no longer buys you well over 2 years of food. It covers just over a full year. And that's the scary part. We're also not even accounting for shrinkflation. You know that thing companies do when they shrink the bag size but keep the price the same? So, just to reiterate, this is the simple math. In 2015, $10,000 bought you roughly 2.5 years of groceries for the average family. And in 2025, that same 10,000 buys you roughly a year and a half. So, you've essentially lost a full year of purchasing power. So, that's groceries. But let's move on to something that hurts almost as much: cars and the transportation cost. So in 2015, the average price of gas was around 2.45 per gallon. And today in 2025, the national average sits closer to 3.80 to 4.10 per gallon depending on the state, and that's roughly a 55 to 70% increase, meaning there's a difference of around 1,500 gallons of gas roughly if you spent that $10,000. That's 30,000 miles of driving in 2015 versus 18,000 today. Now let's talk used cars, because if you tried to buy a used car anytime after 2020, you probably cried in the parking lot like the rest of us. Here's the real data. In 2015, average used car prices were $18,850. In 2025, that jumped to $28,700. That's a nearly 52% jump for the same old Honda Civic with the same mystery stains on the seats. And while we're on the topic of cars, insurance is another kicker. The national average car insurance rate has skyrocketed roughly 28 to 35% since 2015. Honestly, at this point, if you saw someone riding a unicycle to work, it might actually start to look like a strong financial strategy. So groceries are up, driving is up, everything is up. But nothing, and I mean nothing, punches you harder than housing. So let's talk about where $10,000 used to make a huge difference and why today it seems like it barely moves the needle. All right, so strap in because I'm about to send you some crazy numbers here. In 2015, the median rent in the US was around $1,000 per month. Today, in 2025, the median rent is hovering closer to 1900, with many major cities even going way further above that. That's a roughly 90% increase in rent without a 90% increase in wages. All right, so now that we know you get about half the amount of rent for the same amount of money, what about down payments? In 2015, the median home price was about $280,000 nationwide. A standard 3.5% down payment was $9,800, meaning your 10K could legitimately get you into a starter home. Now, if we fast forward to 2025, the median home price is around $420,000, and that same 3.5% down payment is $14,700. That means your $10,000 gets you just over half the required down payment. And let's not forget the mortgage rates. 10 years ago, rates were sitting around 3.8% on average. And today, we've seen rates as high as 6.5 to 7%. So let's see what that actually means in terms of your monthly payment. A $200,000 home at 3.8% is roughly $930 a month. That same home, and let's be generous and say on the lower end, 6.5%, that's $1,264 a month. That's an extra $334 per month for the same house with no upgrades, no renovation, nothing. At this rate, it seems the only way to afford a house in this economy is to move back into one of those pillow forts or tree houses we built as kids. So, groceries have doubled, driving costs have exploded, and housing has become the ultimate boss battle. But there's a hidden danger most people forget about, something small, sneaky, and way more expensive than you realize at first. Let's talk about subscriptions. I figure most people have a streaming service or multiple ones nowadays since it's essentially just replaced cable TV. So here's the comparison. Just to give a few examples that everyone knows, Netflix was $8.99 for their standard plan back in 2015, and Hulu was $11.99 for their standard plan. If we fast forward to 2025, Netflix is now $15.49 for their standard plan, and Hulu is $17.99 for theirs. And not to mention, there's a lot of additional streaming plans that most people have, like Disney Plus, Max, Prime, and Apple TV. So your original like $8 to $10 streaming bundle is now a $70 monthly monster. Now, I know what you're saying. What about how my $10,000 is used? If you spent $10,000 on all like tech related things, including your phone plan, internet, and the streaming services, in 2015, this would keep you covered for approximately 6 to 7 years. In 2025, accounting for current prices, that same $10,000 covers just under 3 years of the same services, roughly. So you've lost more than half your purchasing power essentially for the same exact shows, the same apps, and the same Wi Fi. Now, subscriptions are painful, but there's a category that makes subscriptions look very friendly, and that's healthcare. Let's talk about it. Healthcare is one of those things you don't generally think about until you have to, and then it becomes the only thing you think about. In 2015, the average ER visit cost was around $1,233. In 2015, that same ER visit ranges between 2,700 and 3,200. That's a nearly 150% increase, and the diagnosis always feels like something useless, like, it looks like you're stressed or you should just drink some more water. Another area in the healthcare sector is prescription drug prices. Previously, the average cost of drugs per person was around $1,370 per year. Today, that's closer to 1,900 to roughly 2,000, and that's if you're on just one or two medications. If you have anything chronic, the numbers get ugly very fast. Now let's talk insurance premiums, and be careful because this part is going to hurt. 10 years ago, the average yearly premium per individual was roughly $2,900. Today, that has skyrocketed to $4,900. And if you're on a family plan, it jumps from around $6,000 to over our $10,000 budget. That's a 66% increase for the exact same coverage. So, to add another brick into our wall of this new reality, healthcare costs have also risen far faster than wages. It's one of the biggest reasons the average American feels financially stuck. No matter how much you save, one unexpected medical bill can wipe it all out. So, healthcare is brutal, but there's one final category I want to cover, and that's education. Let's look how far 10,000 used to go when it came to school and why today it barely covers textbooks. Education is supposed to be the investment that pays for itself, but today it's starting to feel more and more like a subscription service that you can never cancel. In 2015, the average cost of tuition at a public four-year university was around $9,400 per year. In 2025, that number is now between 13,500 to 14,000, depending on the state. That's a roughly 40 to 50% increase for the same degree, the same classrooms, and the same uncomfortable wooden chairs. And let's not forget the student loans that seem to lead to the never ending debt. In 2015, the average student loan balance for new grads was roughly 28,000. In 2025, it's closer to 40,000. And that's not counting the interest, because nothing says welcome to adulthood like paying $400 a month for the next decade. By now, you've seen how $10,000 has shrunk across groceries, gas, housing, healthcare, and education. But let's talk about something deeper: the psychological impact. Here's the truth: prices exploded and wages didn't. Between 2015 and 2025, prices increased around 31% overall, and wages only increased roughly 23%. That means the average person is getting poorer even while making more money on paper. Your paycheck went up, but everything went up faster. Here's the truth: 10 years ago, the middle class was already struggling, but today it's getting squeezed from every angle. Even if you're doing everything right by budgeting, saving, being careful, it still feels like you're treading water in a storm. So if you ever felt like you're falling behind or like you're working harder than ever, but somehow moving slower, you're not imagining it. You're living in an economy where money loses value faster than most people can save it. And that constant pressure, that mental load, is quite frankly exhausting. And this is why I make these videos. On this channel, I break down money, inflation, investing, and the general economy made in a simple visual way so you can understand exactly what's going on with your wallet without the confusion or the added stress. I've got many general finance videos, from saving your first $1,000 to how to protect your money in a shaky economy to understanding inflation, investing basics, and a lot more. If you want clear explanations and real numbers and realistic advice for normal people, this channel is built for you. This is Mike, the Investing Goblin, and remember, hoard smarter, not harder. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe so you don't miss out on my future content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.